Good morning and welcome back to United TV. We're going to go through all the transfer news. Ederson from Atlanta being talked about. We're looking at BALEBA, Alex Scott. There's a lot of options as well. I think I saw Hayden Hackney linked again, but there's going to be lots to talk about. And I think one of the reasons is going to be what are Manchester United going to do this summer? I think most people looking at the transfer window know Man United are going to go pretty big on midfield. So just to quickly put this out there, that there's been some very good journalists talking about this yesterday and late last night, and even this morning, I see more information coming out of Manchester United's budget. I would say the £150 million is a bit of a guess because it's pretty based on what did Man United do last season, what are people thinking about, and say Laurie Whitwell got the 115 million number, but I think it's going to be slightly more. And I agree with Yardi. I think it's going to be slightly more. It's going to be quite similar numbers to what we saw last year, with Manchester United spending about 200 million on three attacking players. So I think that might be the budget. But I think in terms of the cost being quoted at 150, I think this is an indication that Man United are going to be negotiating to make sure they don't spend too much and negotiating to try and get the best possible price. So with that in mind, there's a few of the stories. I'll just quickly cover the Ederson story because I did see this was talked about late last night. And the story coming out from Matt Morato is that Manchester United are offering a salary of 4.5 million euros per year. And also, they're looking at that's supposed to be a little bit more than Atletico Madrid, but they might be trying to match Atletico Madrid's agreed fee as well, which I think is around about £35 million. So, looking at this is potentially going to be one of those deals that Manchester United could make, which would be in line with like the Agati replacement price they're kind of talking about, like a £40 million signing. So, apparently, Man United are looking roughly at spending quite big money on one player and maybe a little bit less on other players. So we will have an in-depth discussion today. And if you're in the chat and you've got some thoughts on who your top targets are, who you think Manchester United should sign, this is the time to get those in. There's a lot of options on the table. So there's going to be effectively it's a difficult decision to pick as a fan over who you'd like to see play. But to be honest, for Manchester United, it does mean that there's a lot of options out there. So in terms of like the top target, it might well still be Anderson, although that feels unrealistic. It might well be too many, but he might stay. It's looking like Belieber might be one of the better options in terms of like availability for Manchester United. And the price point for him is roughly of that sort of 75 million euros. You're looking at about 60 million pounds, I think, is a, a good estimate. So I'm going to jump into the chat to get a few thoughts on this because there is a lot of options out there. It's a lot of information to suddenly kind of take in and to try to process. But I think what we're seeing here is pretty much what most of us thought, to be honest. Cheers, Yari. Also, thank you, Jim, for that. Big up to you, Tom, as well. Good to see you, Tom. We are doing regular call-ins, Tom, so it would be great to get you back on as well because you had some excellent points to make last time we spoke. But this is one definitely to talk about as well regarding what are Manchester United's best options at this point in time. If you're going to spend quite big on one player, the difficulty might be that some of the options Man United are looking at, like say looking at Tonali, he would be potentially a bit more expensive than Brighton ask for Belieber, but maybe it's in kind of about £10 million more possibly. If you're looking at Anderson, it feels like that Nottingham Forest credible journalists are saying that they want about 120, 125. So I think Laurie Whitwell yesterday said the price is about 125. It's too much for Man United, although they are saying that they would be willing to meet it in other sources. Is it generally going to be a Manchester City really going to spend over £100 million on one player, like 120? It's not something they normally do, but I'm not going to rule it out. It does seem that there's also possibly Rodri signing an extension. So is Rodri actually going to be staying as well? So there's a lot up in the air regarding other clubs and the targets they're looking at. But for Manchester United, the two most straightforward deals, and the only factor is really price, does seem to be Belieber or Tonali as a starting point. Welcome to chat, Andy. And let's go through some of the comments just to see there is actually a lot of there is actually a lot of options on the table, isn't there? What's with the Arsenal, Chelsea, PSG, Bayern? Surely he's not the caliber of player Arsenal would want. I think well we played against Arsenal this season. I don't think that if you take Belieber out of Brighton and put him in a different role in a different team surrounded by better players, I think you'd be looking at a good option there. If you look at someone like Declan Rice with his experience, and you look at Belieber with his energy, his driving runs, I think that looking at Arsenal's midfield, I think he would be a decent signing. In the Bundesliga, no doubt there would be, no doubt there would be, it'd be easy, bit easier for him as well. So yeah, I think this is one where I think there's a lot of players linked to a lot of clubs at this point in time, Cody, and it might be well that this might be coming from agents as well. I think Manchester United are definitely head and shoulders in like front of everybody else. If we're looking at trying to, if there is any sort of transfer race to try and get this player done, I don't think there's going to be significant competition. I think Belieber's already pretty much made up his mind, and I don't see that changing. So this would be one of those deals that if Manchester United don't get Anderson, or they see that other options are the main targets, this is where Belieber is an option that feels like it's achievable, and it would be the kind of like it would be someone that's been long term scouted. I think one thing I've read about Belieber is that Manchester United see him as somebody that would fit alongside Kobe Mainoo quite well, and that's what they look at as well. So if you're looking at players individually, what they're doing in their clubs, then I think if you look at Belieber, he's been playing a bit more defensive. But now, if you're looking at the situation with Manchester United, it's not about what does Belieber do at Brighton, what does Anderson do at Forest. It's about who actually comes in, fits into Manchester United's team alongside Casemiro, and I think that's what people. Also, replacing Casemiro, but alongside Kobe Mainoo is the main thing. JC saying no one's stupid enough to pay more than 50 for Belieber. But £50 million doesn't get you a lot at the moment, does it? So it's like looking at Belieber, then I think Belieber might surprise people a little bit next season if he did become a Manchester United player, because I think Manchester United have a better team structure now. And looking alongside Kobe Mainoo, he's got a complementary skill set. I think he's got a lot of things going for him at the moment. But Man United are looking at ability and potential rather than just temporary form. So there has been some reasons why I believe it hasn't been great this season, but I can understand people's apprehension. I mean, I'm kind of open-minded about this. If Believer joined Manchester United, we know what he's capable of, and we'd hope that we can get somewhere near that over the next few years. But we also know that it's going to be quite expensive. If anything, having the season he has mean that we're talking about a price of about 60, 65 million, whereas 12 months ago, people were discussing prices of 100 million. So it could work in Man United's favour that if Belieber had another excellent season, we'd be looking at Anderson money. So it is probably a benefit that we're looking at a player that hasn't had the best season. So let's the other options which are seriously considered as well, which I think a lot of people are interested in, and this is in terms of if Manchester United are looking to spend quite big money on one player, then maybe they're going to be looking at spending a little bit less on other players. But I think realistically, the £150 million price, I think it edges up a bit. I think it's going to be closer to 180 to 190, maybe for three players. I think there's actually I think we can get at least three players in. So if we're looking at signing three midfield players, I don't see it being a problem. Like, what's the most expensive one going to be? I don't think we're going to be going over 80 if we're looking at Tonali as £80 million. I think then you've got another at least 100 to spend, and I think two £50 million signings. I think it's achievable. I think there's a lot of good options out there, and I don't think it's going to be too difficult to get three players in that are good options. Morning, Randy, and morning, Cake. We have been linked with Edison for a number of years, so I think the links are genuinely like the links are there, and the links are there, and it's just difficult to see. No, I don't think Man United should be. This feels very similar to the Gallagher deal. Do you remember the Gallagher deal where we're linked to him loads? Apparently, Man United were in for him in January. We tried to get a loan deal for him at the end of last summer. In the end, he went to Spurs, 200k a week. I don't think Man United would be looking to spend that sort of money, salary wise. So I think Edison is definitely there as a backup. I think he brings some experience, but he's probably not the most exciting signing. But we'll have to see how that happens. I think because they've already got an agreement with Atletico, I think it might be journalists and it might be from maybe it's agents getting involved as well, trying to accelerate the deal. But as far as I can see, that if Man United had made an offer to try and get Edison, I still think that Atletico Madrid have got to be in the driving spot. Like they can pay decent salaries. They probably got the money to spend. They're effectively, I think they're trying to replace. I think they're still trying to replace Gallagher anyway. Wellington Mizunan, say believe say believe once United he needs to force a move, preferably below the price. Say way too expensive to Stephanie. You do there is like if you're looking at trying to force your way out of the club, usually what happens is if you submit a transfer request and you try and move out the club in that way, you probably lose like you sometimes lose some bonuses. But because the contract that Baliba's got is so low compared with what he would get at Manchester United, it would make sense for Belieber to do that. But if Belieber got a move last season, he's effectively going to be doubling his salary anyway. So, if you're looking at the situation here, then Belieber, if he wants Man United, then there's things he can do to try and make that happen. I mean, he can. It does seem to be that he's going to be refusing moves to other clubs anyway, which seems to be a positive for Manchester United fans. So, if he's not interested in other clubs, effectively that weakens Brighton's hand anyway. So, I think that he can only do that stuff. To be honest, I don't think he's going to be kicking. I don't think Belieber's going to be we're not going to see anything like Gyökeres potential strike things, are we? So we're not going to see anything crazy like that. But if he wants to move, then hopefully the price gets lowered. But again, it's like Brighton have got the targets, haven't they? Brighton will have players lined up that they want to get anyway, and I don't think it's going to be it's not going to be too much of a problem. Randy says Belieber wasn't as bad as some fans are making out. Also, this is a spot for there's few people on the thumbnail. If there's a few people you think of that Man United can put together for about 150 to 180 million, then this is your option. No, this is your chance to put some suggestions out there in terms of like what you want to see. But Randy's saying Belieber not as bad as some fans make out. He's quite highly scrutinised this season, isn't he? I think a lot of people are looking at what Belieber's doing, questioning, is he having a good season? Is he disappointing for whatever reasons as well? And so we seem to be looking at the same type of midfield runners and tacklers, and say not ball playing midfielders. I think there's a lot of midfield players linked, Andy. Maybe Man United's priority has been trying to like I suppose in terms of like Casemiro, he does a bit of both, doesn't he? That Casemiro is not a midfield runner, but Casemiro is somebody that can pass incredibly well, is quite good going forward, but also, if we're looking for an all-action midfielder, I think Anderson is your guy. If we're looking at different types of midfielders, so in terms of like Belieber, he's definitely more of a midfield runner, more of a progressor. I think tackling wise, pretty good. But I think if you're looking at players that may be more comfortable passing, I think that's where you bring in Angela Stiller and you talk about Angela Stiller, you talk about Adam Wharton as being players that are maybe going to be more comfortable passing. So and maybe they're wondering whether Koeman is going to be able to do that sort of job. I think at the moment Koeman's short passing game is very good. His link-up play between defence and midfield is very good. We saw that against Liverpool. The question would be, where can Koeman play long term? I wonder if they got some sort of idea of what they're looking at as well. And saying, and Mizunan says, give Carrick a chance. He was able to get us here with all this deadwood, lack of depth. Let him choose his new recruits. I think he's going to have some say. But I think he's going to be having some say regarding this one that apparently Carrick will have input on the transfer window, and maybe this is like the fact that he's going to be looking at a bit of, he's obviously not going to be able to decide all the players, but I think what we're looking at is he will have some input as well. And Cam35 is saying that it's stupid going for three midfielders. We need only two midfielders. Um, so if we need to only say you think only need two midfielders, then if we're going to be replacing Agate plus Casemiro, then that still only leaves us with three people, doesn't it? We only have those two plus Koumenu. I think United are looking at getting three because we haven't replaced Ericsson from last season and we need more depth. Like, is Toby Collier going to come back? Are we looking at promoting an academy player? So if they sign two midfielders, I think it's makes our squad a bit lean. But we can have different opinions. I would go for three midfielders if possible. Look at replacing. I'd be replacing Agate. I'd replacing like Casemiro is going to be going. I'd be replacing Casemiro, and I think Ericsson never got replaced. So if you're looking at someone that's got the skill set of Ericsson, apparently Thwaites coming through the academy is talked about, and I think it's a big stretch to ask an academy player to come in and effectively be one of the rotations straight away. That should be quite gradual. So I would say for me, three midfielders would be perfect, but people can have different views. I think if you're going to go for three midfielders, then you're looking at a wide player, and that's definitely something that's going to happen as well. Like United aren't going to do a transfer window where we only sign three players. Like if we sign three midfield players, I'd still be expecting United to look at left back options, wide attacking options as well. So I don't think it's going to be that or the other. I think this is going to be like where's the main bulk of the transfer is going to be. But if you're looking at keeping the cost to 150, 180, say, then there's room to get a few players in that mix. Jim's options would be too many Fernandes, Hayden Hackney as the use of the money, which I mean, there's probably at the moment you'd probably put it down to like West Ham are probably the most likely team to get relegated. That reduces Fernandes's price by approximately half as well. So that would mean that actually that those three players would be comfortably less than 150. You could get Fernandes for about 35, Hackney for about 30, so that's 65, but too many 70. So you're looking at actually quite a cheap rebuild there if you've got those three players in. I don't know whether Man United would definitely go for Hackney if there's if we can get Fernandes for 35, I think it opens up the market to maybe look at maybe spending a little bit more on the third player. But I don't mind those options. I think they're quite good options. Do people look at some of these deals like is Alex Scott going to be potentially a good option as well, depending on price? He seems to have dropped down a little bit, but you're looking at Alex Scott and Tyler Adams were targets and they are kind of on the list. It feels a little bit like Jonathan David was on the list last year. I don't think he's going to be a top target. And if Fernandes is available at a cheaper price because of relegation, I think he's kind of suddenly jumps into like second place. Like he suddenly becomes like a pretty good option there. So I think that's definitely something to look out for. Like, I'm not saying West Ham I want to get relegated, but it would kind of imply that these sort of things might be decided based on price somewhat. So if you can get a good deal for Fernandes, there's going to be a few clubs interested, but United should definitely be in consideration for him for sure. Welcome Rob to the chat. Good to see you, Rob. I hope you're having a good morning today. And say Fletcher boys, another year experience. You got Fletcher, you've got Thwaites, like I said, but I think with Champions League football and trying to maintain the Premier League position as well, I think it would be. I think it's. I don't really like to see academy players relied on to that extent, but no, I think there's good options out there, 100%. I think maybe if Manchester United do think that Thwaites can do that role, but yeah, I think we still need to replace senior players. You're looking at Ericsson, Agate, and Casemiro. That's three players with quite a lot of experience leaving the club over the last 18 months, and they haven't been replaced so far. And Fernandez, too many, João Gomez, say Somerville, like you got quite a lot there looking at that. So if you're looking at that as a complete transfer window, then Fernandez too many, depending on West Ham's survival in the Premier League or relegation, and Gomez would actually be quite achievable, I'm sure. If you're looking at Somerville, I don't think he'd be particularly expensive. Hull, I don't know how much he's going to cost, but I think Cody and Creepy might end up costing quite a lot of money. So if Man United have actually got that sort of money, and apparently, according to when you look at the Semenyo story and you look at other links with like if you're looking at potentially the Diamonde links, it seems that Manchester United for some reason might actually have a decent amount of money to spend or prepared to spend on left players. So it does seem that maybe there's actually a bit more money to spend than people realise. So potentially United do spend quite big in that, but I'd be a bit surprised if they went for people like Rodgers. I think Man United have already got players in the team that are as good. I don't see him suddenly walking into our first team. But I think going for someone that's got a bit more width makes a bit of sense. But no, I quite like that one, Red Times. You've got some good options there. People watching, if you're able to click to like, share the stream as well to get a wider range of like visibility on social media, that'd be appreciated. As this is quite a new channel, so if people could like share the stream on different socials, that would be appreciated. Howard says Tonali, Stiller, Fernandez, Lewis Hall for you. You're not sure how much these will cost. Well, I think Tonali would be about 80 million. Angela Stiller at least 50. I think Fernandez probably 70 if West Ham don't get relegated, probably 35 if they do. Lewis Hall, I have no idea how much he'd cost. I think he would be quite expensive. You're probably talking Wan-Bissaka money, I think, for Lewis Hall. I don't think we're going to be seeing Newcastle let any players go cheap, particularly if they sell Gordon and they sell Tonali, then Newcastle are not going to let any players go cheap, are they? But I think that's kind of a rough price regarding those. They're good options though. So Fernandez, Gomez, Hackney, and Tonali. So you like for four players there, you've probably got relegated West Ham. You probably get Fernandez, Gomez, and Hackney for about 100 million. So you could spend 180 and get four players in. But I think four players for me, you could be looking at four. There's four players there, but if you got three out of four, I think that's fine. Like I do think that we can debate this one, but has he interest in Stiller cooled? I don't see much about Angela Stiller. I just see that every player linked to Man United at the moment, there seems to be the vast majority seem to be Premier League players. It looks like Man United are looking close to home. So even like the left back options, I saw you're looking at potentially Kadioglu, you're looking at Lewis Hall, and you're probably looking at Truffert as well at Bournemouth. There's a lot of players being talked about, and I think most of the options that United are considering do seem to be Premier League players. So whether that approach is going to be the best long term, short term wise, it seems to be what Man United are going for. And even like younger strikers, they're looking at Mane at Wolves. They're also looking at Krupi Jr. at Bournemouth. So it looks like most of the players we're considering do seem to be Premier League options, and that could be a bit of contention for some people. But no, I think it's not the worst strategy in the short term to try and make sure you get players in that are going to at least adjust quite quickly. I'll be honest, I don't think Bournemouth will be selling anyone if they can get Europe. They could get Champions League also, says Yarley. Now, at this stage of the season, there's a lot up in the air, isn't there? There's a lot to play for Bournemouth. There's a lot to play for West Ham, like even more so, you'd argue, this will affect what sort of deals they do. I don't know if it affects the Nottingham Forest situation as well, because Nottingham Forest, potentially they can get Champions League as well, and they're not far away from the final. So that might change things as well. That don't expect any sort of cheap deal from Forest for Anderson. They want over 100, and I think they're quite serious about that. So that might be one that we might have to like. I think Man United might have to walk away from that, given how many deals we're thinking of trying to do. I'm Cody's saying you're really taking a liking to the Fernandez deal. It feels like a decent option, doesn't it? If you're looking at these two players, they've had good seasons. Alex Scott might be available for about 50, like, I think 50 million is Man United's valuation. I think Bournemouth would want more. If Bournemouth get European football, they're going to probably no. Realistically, they might put no. They might just put higher prices on. They might still sell. Like Bournemouth might be looking at no. Their club model does tend to sell players for a big profit, and they might feel that if they feel they can replace some of these key players we're talking about, if they can replace Krupi, if they can replace like Senesi is going to go, isn't he? But if they can replace Alex Scott, then maybe they will do so. And maybe if they can replace them for players they think are younger, it's quite risky though. Like doing it every single season can be quite risky. So if I would say if I was a Bournemouth fan and you've just got Champions League football or Europa League football, I'd be quite concerned if they do if they sell all these players. You're going to have to then bring players in and hope they can replicate what they did last season, but also you're going to have a lot more games and you're going to have a different manager as well. So Areola leaving Bournemouth could be big for them as well. So it might be that this is a good season for Bournemouth and next season might be quite a struggle. But no, I think £50 million is United's valuation. Bournemouth apparently want closer to 65. So if they get big money, I think there's a deal to be done. But I think from Man United's perspective, if Bournemouth want a lot of money, then there's better options out there. Now, if you're looking at these two players on the screen, that potentially a relegated West Ham means that you could get Fernandes for maybe 25, £30 million cheaper than Scott. And if that happened, this is an easy choice to make, isn't it? If Fernandes is available or interested to come to Manchester United, I would definitely be looking at that route. I would say too many is top quality, but it does feel like a difficult one, doesn't it, Kate? It feels like a difficult deal to get too many. It's no, it's not the easiest. It's not the easiest deal. I think with too many, he's likely to stay at Real Madrid. That's probably factor here. That it's not that Man United can't afford too many. It's that he'll probably stay at Real Madrid. Jim says you're warming to Carrick a bit. Is it because you think it's inevitable? It feels a little bit inevitable, doesn't it? Unless there's kind of a surprise regarding this one that no, it does feel a little bit like inevitability that we're going to see Michael Carrick as head coach, and no, he's coached Man United well since January, since he came in, and if we had a conversation in January, then we'd be saying that if we got third in the Premier League, I think most people would be saying job done. The question is going to be, what do Man United do next season with the coaching? And I think what we're seeing is if Michael Carrick stays on, he's probably going to have a couple of different coaches with him. Potentially, one is the Bayern Munich assistant manager, so they might be refreshing it in. But I think at the moment nothing's been decided. But it does feel that United are probably having conversations to see if there's alternatives. It's tricky, but whatever happens, I think Man United fans, based on this season, if Carrick's in charge, we'll all get behind him. If Nagelsmann came in or Areola came in or any other option, I think we'd all get behind them and hope that we're getting hope that we move in a positive way. But no, the main thing is, regardless of who's going to be in charge, whether it's Carrick, Nagelsmann, Areola, the main thing really is if Manchester United get this transfer window spot on, or if they can get a transfer window similar to last season where all the signings had a big impact on the first team, then that would probably move us in the right direction, and that would probably be enough for now. That if we get a good transfer window, fix midfield, get another couple of players that can improve the depth of our squad, and there is potentially a couple of academy players stepping up as well, which could be bridging a couple of gaps, but also does give a little bit more depth. I think we could be looking in a good place, but there's a long way to go. But I think that if Carrick stays, then he can build on what he's done. I'd say Forest may try and keep, and they might try and keep him. Their owner is wanting crazy money though, Jim, isn't he? If Man United or Man City want to get Anderson out of Forest, it's going to cost a fortune. And to be honest, like a relegated Forest might have been, I mean, you might have got a better price, but I think realistically at the moment you're going to be talking Declan Rice money possibly. So I think that's why Man United are looking elsewhere. I think, and I did say this, Anderson is my top target or was my top target, but I think there's like actually quite good deals around there to try and do. And saying swap Lenny Yoro for Alex Scott was what I was hearing a lot around Old Trafford on Sunday. Rich, I would say do that. I saw a story actually where Lenny Yoro was linked to Barcelona. I think it was Barcelona. We're potentially looking at trying to get Balde out of Barcelona. I mean, Lenny Yoro cost a lot of money from Man United, say a year ago or 2 years ago. He cost quite a bit. Then, if Manchester United was to let Lenny Yoro go, and Alex Scott comes in, it would feel that defensively we're a bit lean with like Aiden Heaven there. You've got Maguire, but then you've only got De Ligt and Lissandro Martinez, and they've been very injury prone. So if we drop down to like four centre backs, then I mean I don't I think it's not a bad it's not a bad option to be honest. I think Alex Scott has had a good season, and I do like him. But no, if this is like a fan kind of suggestion, then I don't know. I think Yora's still got a way to go, and it's still, yeah, it's still. I think with Lenny Yora, he's still got a lot of potential. But I think if United did that, then or considered any sort of exit for Lenny Yora, you'd have to go into the centre back market, wouldn't you? So, yeah, it's one where I think United look at Lenny Yora. We've had him a couple of seasons. It's kind of like been good in patches, but I think there's difference with like it's I think Yora's got a potentially high ceiling, but there's a few things he needs to work on. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with Yora. I think there's a lot of positives about keeping him, but it depends. His maybe next season could be a big season for Yora. That if he wants to stay in the Premier League, I think I'd like to see Yorick being kept, but again, you never know, do you? Because some players come to the Premier League, potentially they look at potentially they look at moving on, but we'll have to see. There's still a long way to go regarding this one. I mean, he was heavily linked to Real Madrid, wasn't he? When we signed him, I don't know if there's going to be more links like emerging for him. So whoever comes into our midfield has to be consistent, say solid every week. It's yeah. I think whoever comes into our midfield, they're going to be heavily scrutinised and they're going to be compared relentlessly to Casemiro, aren't they? The problem is going to be no matter who comes into Man United's midfield, you're going to have like the pre-season, you're going to have to work out a few things as well. That over the course of like the last say 10 to 15 games, we've seen Mainu and Casemiro build up a good understanding, a good relationship on the pitch. That takes time. So regardless of whether Belieber comes in or Anderson comes in, it's about partnerships and understanding on the pitch. And what we have seen is over the last sort of 4 or 5 games in particular, with Casemiro and Mainu, there's a better understanding, and this just happens just by just playing more matches together. So it would be a bit of a, no, it would be a different situation. So I would be saying that given what's happened over the last 12 months, you'd imagine that next season the attack should be clicking already because you've got Bruno Fernandes, you've got Cunha, Mbeumo, Dorgu, like that, Sesko, things with that are clicking into gear, that the attack's actually looking more functional. I think the midfield's quite key, but if you do actually have a transfer window where you replace effectively most of most of your midfield, like we're going to be having 3 new midfield players, hopefully anyway, and we're going to be looking at a very different midfield. So it's going to take a bit of time to build up those understandings, and particularly as we're looking at quite young signings as well. So we're looking at Belieber, Anderson, we're looking at Wharton. They're all quite young players, so it's going to be a little bit of a. It's going to take a bit of an adaptation process. So I think midfield might be a bit say hit and miss for a little bit of time, but I think in the long run, if you're getting the quality there, it will improve. But it's going to be, I think it's going to be the first few games are going to be a bit tricky. And it's saying give Lenny time. So that's why you want experienced players coming in. So not every signing has to be experienced, but no, if you're looking at experience, like Tchouaméni is the experience, isn't he? You'd say Tonali's the experienced player. You'd say Ederson would be experienced as well. But you could make an argument now that some players like, say, Anderson, for example, you can have players coming in at 22, 23 that are actually quite experienced, that are actually, going to be um, say 2 or 3 years Premier League football. I think with Anderson as well, he's got European football. Potentially, he's taking Forest to a Europa League final. Maybe they can win that as well. So he'd be coming on the back of like good experience. So I think no one's going to replace Casemiro's experience. The man's lifted like multiple Champions Leagues and played in one of the best teams in world football. So no one's going to replace Casemiro's experience. But maybe we can like tick a couple of the boxes as well. So Yari says Euro biggest ceiling at the club. Yeah, I think we can talk about Euro another time. I think Euro. I would still say from a Man United's perspective, I believe Euro and Heaven are seen as the defensive options for the future. So I think at this point in time, like Euro is going to be Euro's young. He's gone through. He's had probably a few games where it's not been on his best form, but then Aiden Heaven has also had a few games like that over the start of the season. But they're both young players. They're both 19 and 20 years old. So I think Aiden Heaven and Yoro, there's a long way to go. I think Aiden Heaven, they're different players, aren't they? So the strengths that Aiden Heaven have got, I think they make him quite suitable to the Premier League. He's obviously quite strong physically, and I think he does fit into the team pretty well. And I think Yoro is still got a long way to develop as well. So he could be a very top player. But again, maybe next season is going to be a key season for a lot of the younger players. As I said, even good young players are somewhat inconsistent. I think Yoram might have played too many matches in a row when he came to Man United. So if you're looking at Manchester United next season, if Yora's playing like one in like every other game or something, or getting some Champions League experience, I think we might see a different player as well. So I think United at the moment say that Jim's saying that don't make a snap decision. You might regret it. Say like James Gardner, Alvaro Fernandez, Alvaro Carreras. You look at these players that it's going to take a little bit of time for development. But no, the thing is the bar is going to be raised, isn't it? When Man United get Champions League football, you do look at it for the future, don't you? And you look at it and go, once we've got Champions League football, we do need to look at the squad and get better quality players. So, but I think there's going to be lots of different things. We haven't seen Aiden Heaven and Yoro play loads together, so I think with this one, that's going to be something to see for the future as well. So maybe in like some cup games, maybe we can see Aiden Heaven and Yoro playing alongside each other. At the moment, though, I do quite like the option of having Harry Maguire alongside Yoro or Aiden Heaven for a few games. Now maybe we see actually like Yoro get a couple more games towards the end of the season as well because he hasn't had as much football recently. So I'll be quite positive regarding that one. Let's say, is the 150 spend amortized or total spend? Well, I think 150, whatever happens with the spend, it's going to be spread over a certain amount of years anyway. So I think most of the thing spend. I think you're looking at total spend there. So in terms of total spend, and Manchester United looking at 150 across potentially three players. The ones I've seen linked today that have been most notable are the Believer one is always going to be on the cards. I think the one that's been talking about as well in national newspapers in the UK is that Manchester United these are kind of maybe considered backup options or different options. If you consider Alex Scott and Fernandes as two different players Man United looking at, the two clubs in consideration are Bournemouth could have European football, West Ham might get relegated. So the prices for these players is probably going to be dependent on how the club does. And I think at the moment I would lean towards Fernandes as a good option if he's available for like 34 million, like it's been suggested if they get relegated. But I think what we're seeing is that United have said that this is kind of where the journalists are starting. United have said they'll spend maybe 80 million on one top quality player. So that's where the Anderson story comes from. That's where Tonali comes from. That's too many. I think Belieber might be considered as one of those options as well. But if you look at the list, actually, that I didn't actually look at the list, but those are the players that have been talked about. Adam Wharton, I feel is actually cheaper than that. So I think Adam Wharton is maybe 60, 65 million. I'd also say that Belieber should be like about 60, 65 million as well as a maximum price. So I think 80 million, you're not going to have to spend that much either. Too many is about 70 million. So, and that's in pounds, that price, 80 million. And if you're looking at cheaper options, you got Fernandez, Alex Scott, Tyler Adams. I think you could add Joe Gomez to that. You could add probably Angela Stiller to that as cheaper options. So that's like kind of 40, 50 million pounds. So there's a lot of options out there. And it does seem to be clear, like we've all said the same thing, haven't we? Man United's transfer strategy seems to be fairly transparent in terms of like get three midfield players in. You're probably going to spend quite big. And say it's Wharton 65. Apparently Wharton's supposed to be 60 to 65. That's what people are thinking. Welcome, Gregory, to the conversation. You're saying that list is missing Stiller. No, this was probably just put together as not an extensive list, but if you're looking at this, it is missing Angela Stiller. I think it's primarily focusing on Premier League players, isn't it? So if we're looking at the best options, I think Manchester United, there's a lot of options out there, but I think primarily they're going to go for Premier League targets. Apart from Too Many, I think Too Many is the one, but Too Many has incredible experience. I think that's probably going to be yeah. So I snatched a hand off at Wharton. We'll have to see if Wharton costs 60, 65 million. I think that seems to be significantly cheaper than anything I've seen before. But that was a story that was put out there that there's an agreement because Wharton was expected to leave in the summer, and there's an agreement apparently with Crystal Palace that that he would be allowed to leave at a sensible price. So if that happens, then that's we'll figure out to be true. But I think a lot of people are not really sure regarding this one. Um, yeah, I'm not saying anything about. I'm just reading through the comments, real. I'm not saying anything about Yori's future. I think there's been a few factors like he's played for what three managers, three goalkeepers. I mean, I think Bayern made every defender worse, and I think Anana made every defender a bit unsure of what was happening. Now, with Lamens in goal, and I think Aiden Heaven's been quite lucky in a way that he's come into the team with Lamens in goal, Harry Maguire next to him, and that's been like a good setup. So we've kind of dropped Aiden Heaven into a team that's got Luke Shaw, Dallo, and Maguire and Lamens, and is like got a lot of experience in the defence in that team and a good goalkeeper. Tony says it depends on what style of play. If we want to play on the counter attack, then you think Stiller and Wharton would be good options. If we want to dominate midfield, we need different types of players. Who would you like to try and dominate midfield? I still think that Belieber is going to be one that fans might have to get their heads around in terms of like Manchester United see him as they see him as like a good signing, even though form has been a bit up and down as well. But say, of course, United will say 150 when we all know if we'll spend nearer 200 if the right midfielders are available. I agree. Do you remember? I can't remember how much we said we'd spend last summer, but we did talk a little bit about potential options, and I think we picked out. I think I myself said that we're going to spend maybe 180 to 200 million, and we're going to be looking at trying to get at least say three attacking players into our team. And in the end, I can't remember exactly how much it would cost with add-ons, but Baliba went up to actually, Mbeumo went up to about 71 million with add-ons, and we probably actually paid the Mbeumo add-ons now because we got Champions League football. Cunha was 62.5, and then I can't remember how much Seska's going to cost, but it's probably going to be just above 70 with add-ons. And you look at that and go, actually, no, that's about 200 million pounds there, or slightly over 200 million pounds. Midfielders tend to cost just as much, if not more, in some instances as well. So if you're looking at, say, pick three from this list, then I would say the ones that are non-Premier League players are maybe less likely, like the Boadi deal or Angela Stiller deal. A Gume might feel a bit less likely, but I think if these prices are in pounds, I think they could be slightly cheaper. I think too many could be 70, Tonali about 80. Anderson is the one where is Anderson going to be the most expensive transfer this window? I think that's what people look at and think he might be the most expensive. So when you look at this list, you start looking at Fernandez and thinking, if they get relegated, he's a good option. And there's quite a few players on there that are actually quite good. And Kate's saying if you can get Wharton for 65, Hayden Hackney for I think you can get him for 30, and you're looking at Baliba, Baliba probably costs like 60 with add-ons, if we're honest. Like, I don't think he's not going to be like 75, 80 million. I don't think he's going to be 50. I think the price is kind of going to be a little bit like the slot price we paid for Cunha last season, and maybe with some add-ons based on because Brighton are going to be quite difficult to negotiate with. I think Baliba with a good season at Man United would suddenly be, people would then change their opinion back on him. So I think he's had a rough season, but I don't think he's like devalued himself loads in Man United's eyes anyway. No, it seems like it's quite easy, doesn't it? That it seems like it'd be quite difficult to buy three midfielders that don't work out from these lists we're looking at. Um, Welcome, Clive, to the chat. Yeah, we were good on Sunday. Yeah, you are a Liverpool fan, aren't you, Clive? Or have I got that wrong? I can't remember. I know that Nems is definitely one. Cam said I called United would get fourth, and the two players that will shine were Lamans. Who would improve our defence with Sesko with 11 goals and 17 appearances? You can say three midfield players is a wrong move, but I think that United have to. If Agate's leaving and Casemiro's leaving, then I think we need to get three people in. I just don't see there being a lot of options otherwise. I don't think there's enough options otherwise, but yeah, it's just a judgment call. And so I didn't hear this part, but I'd love to know who says Manchester United will only spend 180 million, and is that only on midfielders? So this is a couple of sources. I'm trying to think who it was. Graham Bailey said this. Also, Laurie Whitwell said this. So I think the numbers. I'd say Gregory. I think the numbers are just numbers put out there. I don't think it's. I don't think they're definitely. I don't know if they're coming from Manchester United, but it does seem that maybe Manchester United are actually trying to push down. They're trying to imply they're not going to spend big money. So I don't know whether the fact that these numbers being put out by journalists is like something Man United is trying to push out there and try and say that they're not going to spend too much. I think most fans are looking at the transfer window and thinking Manchester United are going to negotiate hard. So I think the idea is that Man United are not going to spend really big money. Like we're not going to throw crazy money at certain players, but we are going to be looking at options available and maybe looking at how much money should Belieber cost. If Brighton ask for too much money, then we can switch targets and go for somebody else. So I think there's definitely a situation where Manchester United can be more sensible in the transfer window and not overpay. So I mean, I'm mindful that United do have to pay a certain amount. Like we obviously have to get some quality in. If you're trying to go for Anderson, you have to spend the price it costs. Like you can't get too cheap a deal, can you? I say we won't buy Wharton. He's got average field coverage speed, which is exactly why Casemiro and Mainu get punished. I say we need someone who truly covers the ground, like a Too Many or an Anderson or a Belieber. It seems that this is the reason why Manchester United are linked to these players. Like Too Many, Anderson, Belieber are probably the primary targets. I think that's what Manchester United are looking at initially. That there was no doubt that when Man United were looking at midfield targets a year ago, Belieber was top target, but they did say Belieber plus Wharton. So it would be that Wharton would be somebody that's going to be there for the passing range, but you would be looking at someone that's going to cover the Premier League. You do need to have someone that can cover a lot of midfield space. It's just an inevitability that even on the weekend, Man United did start losing control a bit in the midfield because they do get a bit overrun with Casemiro and Koemeni. We still look very good in possession, and we do look very good in possession. But I think on transition, you do need someone that can get back into shape a bit quicker. So if Casemiro is pushing forward and we lose the ball, he's not going to be able to recover quick enough. So I think Anderson for me would be the best option available. But I think Belieber would also be able to do that option as well. So I think Belieber might have a different role at Manchester United than maybe we saw a year ago at Brighton. So I think at Brighton, everybody loved Belieber for his driving runs. But I think for Man United, it is also about off the ball work as well. Yeah, no, passing range from Wharton. Wharton could do what Casemiro does on the ball. And I think you're looking at that. On the ball, Casemiro has got incredible passing for what is considered a defensive player. Adam Wharton can do that very well. I think Angela Stiller is supposed to be also similar in that respect. That people look at Angela Stiller as going to be a very good on the ball player as well, who could be doing this. So I think there's definitely some factors where you're looking at that. Adam Wharton is a good option, but would Adam Wharton be? I don't like to compare players too much, but would Adam Wharton be not the best option for Man United because they'd be expecting Mainey to do that sort of role, or would they be looking at Mainey to drop deep and have someone else going further forward? So I'm not sure an Adam Wharton co-Mainey midfield would be the best option, but you could put Anderson next to Mainey, and I think, or Belieber, and I think it would work quite well. And with the bet, so I think the all reporters are guessing, and to be fair, so are we. However, United are in a good position financially to obtain this. I think there's going to be speculation, isn't there? That I think if you remember last season when we discussed the transfer window, I thought we were quite spot on with what our predictions were. That some of the deals we looked at, I think we did, we kind of did about as well as we could have done given the circumstances. Let's say cut 300 million total spend. You're looking at what Tonali, Stiller, Scott as three midfielders, and then backup players. You got backup striker, left back Trafford. Would that cost 300 million? I think Tonali might be 80, Stiller about 50, it's 130, Scott 50, 180. I think for 300 million, you fix a lot more than that. That's only backup striker they might be looking at 30 million on Mane. So I think you don't have to spend 300 million to get. If you're spending 300 million, I'd probably want an extra player at least in that list. I don't think United are going to spend 300 million and just get what have you got five players. I think they can get because I don't think Stiller Scott going to be incredibly expensive. Truffert, I'm not sure how much it's going to cost, to be honest. I would say we also need, say, left back, right back, but you don't see us getting any if we get three midfielders and a backup forward player. Maybe they're looking at someone like Kadioglu. He has been linked, and Kadioglu is someone that can play left back or right back. But no, I don't think. I think right back is going to be the least likely position they upgrade on. I think left back with Luke Shaw playing the whole season. He's not going to play the whole season next season, is he? Certainly not with Champions League football games as well. So no, Luke Shaw's done well, but I think Luke Shaw has his limitations that he's not going to play every single match. So no, that's definitely one to consider. Say 2 games a week. With 2 games a week, it's almost like you need to consider like who would play. Would some people play twice a week? Like would Mainly play 2 games a week? Would Fernandez play 2 games a week? Or are you looking at maybe one? I don't think we're going to have like Chelsea used to do a few years ago. I don't think we're going to have two separate teams almost. But I do get the feeling that you could have if you're looking at Mainu plus Wharton, I think you can have different options in different matches with Fernandez. I think Anderson, for me, is one of those players that because he's quite is pretty mobile, gets around the pitch loads. I think you could be seeing 2 games a week from people like Anderson at a high level. So it's quite tricky, isn't it? I'd say right back is a big problem we definitely need to consider. I think we can consider it, but do you think in terms of like all the players we're looking at, if we're looking at a few midfielders, we're looking at left wing, we're looking at backup striker, we're looking at left back position. We don't have a backup goalkeeper really either. There's a lot of options, there's a lot of things there to try and fix. If we're looking at trying to play with a more progressive left back and the left back gets further up the pitch, do we need to worry too much about the right back situation? Like, are we going to be having 2 people there that can do it? I mean, Mazraoui hasn't played a lot recently either, so there's no doubt he could do a decent job. I'm just saying at the moment it's going to be, it's going to be difficult to get this many deals done. And Cody says last year we did 4 deals. Do we do it? Do we do any like very minor deals? I can't remember now if we did. So I think there's definitely going to be like for me like it's at least 6, isn't it? At least 6 players need to come in. And if you're looking at maybe 1 or 2 academy players like stepping into the first team, like Lacey, Thwaites, Fletcher, you still need to actually look at 5. I think 5 decent signings coming in. Then so you would buy 2 main midfielders and get Keith Smith. He'll be world class in the future. I hope Luke Shaw doesn't have the injury issues. I hope it's just like a coincidence, and that this season he might play every single match in the Premier League, and it would be tricky. I'd say honestly speaking, the only person who matches Casemiro and has a slight edge over Casemiro is too many. Yeah, he's that's why Man United are looking at him as an option. I think he's the only person. I think too many is the only person we've spoken about that's got the experience Casemiro's got and has got the now maybe he's got the leadership, he's got the mobility, he's got the physicality, and he's also excelled against English teams in the Champions League. So too many feels like he should be up there as a consideration. 100%. I would say that for me that the best option to sign one player to start with would be Anderson or too many, and that's why we talked about too many probably like a week or 2 ago. So it is going to be quite difficult. And if you look at trying to replace Casemiro is going to be the tricky option, isn't it? So I don't think we can get necessarily a full upgrade on Casemiro. Like maybe too many is the closest thing to that because he would do a lot of things that Casemiro does. Actually, too many is quite good in the air as well. So, I mean, I still think there's like 90% chance that he's just getting a new contract at Real Madrid. But if he came out and said that he's not, that he's going to leave Real Madrid, then I would make him a priority signing. But at this point in time, I'm not sure. I even see stories like this morning, I think, about maybe Rodri extending his stay at Manchester City. So if that happens and there's less options on the table for Real Madrid, if Real Madrid aren't signing a top quality midfield player, I don't think too many is allowed to leave anyway. I think Camavinga might be the player they try and let go if they're looking at trying to move somebody on. So I don't think too many is like Real Madrid want to keep him. I don't see him actually leaving. Yeah, no, I hope he is an option, but I don't think he is. That's all I'd say. So let's go through a few of the comments. If you're new to the channel as well, please get involved in the conversation. Just let me know like 3 midfield players you'd sign if you want to get involved in the debate. The main talking points this morning are potentially 150 million pounds spent on Manchester United's first team in the midfield, and 80 million or expected that sort of 80 million to replace Casemiro. The key options are on the screen there: Anderson, Baleba, Wharton, Tonali, too many. I think most people prefer Anderson or too many, but they might be on for one reason or another. Like too many might not even be available this window. We don't know, but if he is, I think he's should be pretty high up the list. And then beyond that, there's lots of options to try and bulk out the squad from like Fernandes, Scott, Adams. You could probably put Angela Still into that as well. You could probably put trying to think who else is there. Joe Gomez is on there as well, and so there's a lot of options available. But I think most people look at that and go like, the main options are going to be on quite expensive, but we're going to spend maybe like 40 to 50 million pounds on a couple of other signings as well. I think for some reason, I still think that this might be the most likely. I still think Believer might be the most likely because I don't see significant interest from other clubs. So if you're looking at the clubs that are apparently rumored to be interested, I don't think Chelsea are in a position like there's no way he goes to Chelsea, surely, given the situation they're at as a club. Bayern Munich. I don't know if Bayern Munich would want Belieber. Maybe they would. Maybe they would be interested. I'm not sure about Arsenal. Like Arsenal might be looking for different player profiles. They've already got a few midfield options. So, but no idea. Like Arsenal are also linked to Tonali. So I don't know whether what Arsenal do. If Arsenal win the league this season, which does look like it's going to happen now after City dropping points, I don't know what they look at doing as a rebuild. So yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Kate said you would sign Tonali, Anderson, and Hayden Hackney if it was you. So yeah, looking at that as options, like Tonali's going to be quite expensive, isn't he? Anderson plus very expensive as well. Maybe you could look at. I'm just trying to think how much you. What's the cheapest you could get Anderson for? Like 100. Tonali like 80. Hackney's 30. So that's 110 plus Anderson. So you might be spending over 200 million on midfield, but you would have a crazy good midfield. So you would be spending a lot of midfield cake. So you might not have as much to do other things in your team. But if you're looking at fixing midfield in one window, I think that's about as close as you can get to doing it. But you would be spending pretty big. I mean, just a quick question: how much do people think if Anderson moves? How much does he go for? Like, what figure are we thinking? Are we thinking 100 million? Like we're thinking Declan Rice like 110? Are we thinking like could be even more? Like Forest have got a valuation of 125. I don't think Man United are going to be spending 125 million. I'd be genuinely surprised actually if Man City spent that. It seems like a lot of money for one player. That Anderson's good, but I think when you start talking about 80, 90 million, you can buy two players for that sort of money. So that as good as Anderson is, he's one player, and 125 million sounds like too much money. I think if you're going to spend 120 million, you could get Belieber plus Fernandes maybe for that sort of money. So Angela Stiller, Fernandes, too many would be your three midfield players. So Anderson, Alex Scott, Fernandes, Belieber. So you've gone for four. That's going to be very expensive, very expensive. Even Fernandes relegation clause at 35 million. That's still going to be. I think Anderson's 100. Scott plus Belieber is going to be over 100. That would be like that's like 250 million. If we did that, that would be crazy. Gregory says 85 million. 85 million if he's coming to Man United. Do you think he goes before the World Cup? Like, if he's looking at moving, like I know a lot of Premier League clubs want to get deals done before the World Cup, but I'm just wondering whether that does actually happen. So Anderson will be 90 plus add-on, says Mizunen. So yeah, possibly. It just like when you look at deals, like it does seem really expensive. If if the valuation of Forest is like 125, though, I don't. I feel like Man United should walk away from that. I know they've said that he's the top priority. We think he's the best player available, but I think it's just like Forest just being too. It's just too much money. And D Hexion says there will be a World Cup tax on that. There might be. I'm assuming England is probably going to do quite well, and I'm assuming that England will get to the latter stages of the knockout competition. I don't know. It depends, doesn't it? Like who's going to be getting into midfield? You got Wharton, you got Bellingham, you got Kobe Mainoo, you got Anderson. Like what happens? Like, no, what happens if Anderson? Like, I don't think he's going to have a poor World Cup, but it's going to be tricky. They can't all play all the matches, so it'd be interesting. Maybe Kobe Mainoo's status might go up a lot in the World Cup, like if he plays well. Since Tonali is 100 million, Anderson is 125 to fund you. I think Tonali is going to be, according to Newcastle sources a week ago, Tonali is available for 80 million. So if that's the case, then I think there's a deal to be done. Like for Tonali, like 80 million for Tonali starts becoming like a bit more realistic. If Anderson's 125, it's crazy money, isn't it? So yeah, what's the most likely first deal? So they might be. I think Tonali might be more achievable than people think. Like I don't think the price is. I think that Anderson 100% agree it's going to be crazy, but yeah, Um, you would take Believer for 65, Scott 55. Yeah, I think these are actually good options. Like when you're looking at this in terms of like cost effectiveness, if Manchester United genuinely believe that a believer carry-mainly midfield would function well. And you've got to trust the scouting as well. Look at what they're trying to achieve as a team. A lot of this depends on how does Wilcox, how do Carrick, how does Vivell, how do they see this team playing football? What do they actually want to achieve on the pitch? If Belieber addresses a lot of the issues they've got, or a lot of the things they want to see from the other midfielder alongside Kobe Manu in a 4-2-3-1, and tactically it works, and Manchester United can play the football they want to play, it makes sense. And if you're looking at Scott and Fernandes, that's three midfield players that are a very sensible price. And that would leave us with, so looking at the price of 65 plus 55, I think that's sensible. So was that 120? And then you look at 35 to 40 for Fernandes, assuming a relegation for West Ham, that's 180 million. Sorry, no, 160 million. That's actually pretty much a cent. That's quite cheap, actually. If United can get three midfield players for 160, and we're talking about those sort of quality players, I think that would be really good business because I think that would leave Man United enough room to get a left back, enough room to get some attacking cover. And don't forget, Agate is going to be going out. That'll be money in the bank. The Erasmus money coming out as well. I think there's going to be maybe like 80, 100 million pounds coming into the club in players leaving. And if you add that onto 150 million pounds spend, we could be spending like net 200 and maybe addressing most of the problems in our team. So I think there's like a lot of room to be optimistic. The worst case scenario is financially, you go, right, Anderson 120, Tonali 100, you've got like over 200 spent for just two players. But I think United can get six in with a net spend of like maybe between 200, 250. And with the Champions League money coming in, it feels like there's a deal to be done, doesn't it? It feels like there's definitely options out there. And Funchi's saying that you feel like none of these Manchester clubs can afford 110 for, say, an unproven player. Don't forget, people were talking about Mark Gahey as being like potentially like the best option available for centre back position. He dropped a quite a bad error last night, and it might cost City the league. He looked a bit out of his depth in some Champions League matches at City as well. There's going to be a step up for all these players, and it's going to be quite difficult. So I think you can look at it and say there's no guarantee that these players are going to be worth this sort of money. Over 110 is, I think, too much money for Anderson. He's good, but I think you have to be realistic. That it's too much money. I'll say at the end of the day, we're forced to get Belieber if it's a I don't think it's that Man United are forced to get Belieber. I think that Manchester United scouts look at Belieber in a different way to football fans do. So if you're looking as a football fan looking at Belieber, people will probably be. I don't know if people are watching every single Brighton game. You might be watching some. There's a lot of negative stuff on social media, probably making out that Belieber's been much worse than he has been. He's not been as good as he was a year ago, but he hasn't been dreadful. There's some injury issues behind the scenes. There's a couple of other factors why Belieber might not be hitting the same level he was. So there's that going on. But also, Manchester United look at it and there was reasons why they got Yoro and Aiden Heaven and Dorgu was because they saw what they wanted to do from Dorgu. Like, say, for Dorgu, there was a lot of potential to be an attacking player. But if you looked at Lecce, you didn't really see that at Lecce. Like, Lecce, he was mainly a left back. And most of the time he played at Lecce, he was a left back or right back. He did play a little bit as a left winger. And then we saw Manchester United bought him. He was mainly a wing back for a while. And then further forward, you can go, okay, actually, the Man United are buying Dorgu based on where's this player going to be in 2 or 3 years' time. They weren't buying Dorgu based on what did he do last year, what did he do the year before. And I think Manchester United are not buying Belieber based on what's he done at Brighton the last 2 years, like what's his performance levels have been. They're looking at that to some extent, but they're looking at what attributes does Belieber have? He has mobility. Can he run with the ball? Yes, he can. Does he make good decisions when he's passing after dribbling? Yes, he does. Like, okay, has he had a bit of drop in form? Yes, but does his skill set is his skill set a bit unique as well in the Premier League? Are the players that can do what Belieber can do on a good day? So if they're looking at the skill set of Belieber, I feel that they're looking at what his potential is more than we are. So we're probably judging on on recent games, but I think Man United are looking at potentially where does he fit in a couple of years' time. Don't forget, Man United's strategy does seem to be somewhat longer term as well. So, like Yoro wasn't going to be a signing that hit the ground running. I don't think Aiden Heaven was expected to be this good so soon. And I think Dorgu was like one where a few years in mind was probably the plan. Do I think Vitek will be a backup goalkeeper next season? I think Binder's gone. I think Binder, there's agreement to sell Binder. I think Anana's gone as well. I think Vitek wants to be a first team goalkeeper. So I think to answer your question, Jay, I think that Vitek might be sold because Vitek wants to be a first team goalkeeper, or Vitek might be loaned out. So I don't think I think Vitek's a good player, like a really good goalkeeper, but I think Man United fans want to see him as a backup option. I think Vitek sees himself as a first team goalkeeper. So difficult situation with that one. But no, I don't know. We have to just guess, won't we? That I think Vitek will be offered a backup role at Manchester United. Maybe he'll be offered. No, it might be that Vitek will be offered potentially. I think if I was Man United, I would be saying to Vitek, look, come to Man United. You can be backup goalkeeper, but maybe if you can say to give him some assurances and say to Vitek, look, we'll give you like 4 games in the group stage of the Champions League. We'll give you League Cup matches or FA Cup matches. I think there's definitely a reason. There's definitely for me reasons why you can actually get Vitek to stay. That's what I'm hoping. A massive shout out to Rob for the gifted memberships. Big up to you, Rob. You absolute legend. Absolute legend. So welcome to Wiz of Better, also a channel legend. The Hexian, Coyote, Red Devil Studio, my man, Mr. G at Red Devil Studio. Big shout out to Red Devil Studio as well, who did actually reach out to me, and we did have a few conversations a few weeks ago when I was kind of sorting out this channel, getting back up to speed, and kind of kickstarted my kind of interest in YouTube as well with like getting people involved. So big up to you. Mary Soup, I don't recognize your account, but thank you for getting involved in the conversation. Thanks for watching today. And anybody watching, if you've got some comments and questions as well, please get them in. We will be trying to gradually expand content on the channel as well. So hopefully you kind of, if you're watching, hopefully you enjoy the more relaxed style to football YouTube, and we're not going to be getting too angry about things. We're kind of like just considering all the options. But no, I think Vitek, I think Man United will be like, yeah, please be backup goalkeeper because the position's there. But this is kind of what I would do. I would just say to Vitek, 4 Champions League matches in the group stage, like League Cup matches, FA Cup matches, like it still could be, I think, good. Like if you're looking at Vitek, it depends what the options are on the table. That if you're Man United backup goalkeeper, but you get some assurances of maybe getting cup games and maybe getting some Champions League experience, I think it'd be a tough one for Vitek to turn down for 12 months. And then maybe it's going to be because if Man United get Vitek in as backup for 12 months. If he then leaves, I think it might be better for him and Manchester United. Like I'm hoping that Vitek will be. So let's say he's in the Champions League and he plays well, and then he goes in the FA Cup and we do well in that competition. I think Vitek could maybe walk into a good team in the Premier League. So I think there's like definitely I see Vitek as being a Premier League goalkeeper, like a first team goalkeeper. I think he's potentially too good to be a backup, and that could be it's kind of a blessing, but also a curse, isn't it? He's too good to be a backup, but unfortunately, we want a backup goalkeeper. So 1 season at Man United would be my dream for Vitek, and then if he does like kick on and looks like top quality against good quality opposition, then maybe he gets a dream move to a good Premier League club, and Man United probably cash in and then buy another person. But it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult having 2 good goalkeepers. It's So competition for places is good, says Andy. I think a lot of people looking at the people I know that are academy goalkeepers say the goalkeeping is a bit different at clubs. Like goalkeeping, it's not necessarily you don't normally get competition for places from goalkeepers. Normally, you have like a recognised hierarchy at the club where you got your first team goalkeeper, your backup, and then a third goalkeeper, which is generally not going to be expected to play many games and is there as part of like the coaching kind of setup as well. But so I think it's a tricky situation for Man United to negotiate. But yeah, I know, big up to you, Gregory, as well. I know it's like very late where you are. So Jay is saying there will be a domino effect. I think we signed too many. Then Real Madrid used that money to get Rodri, and then Man City used that money to get Anderson. Do you know what I was thinking? I kind of like what you're saying. Big up to Ducks as well. So Kate being reasonable, yeah, it's happening. We're talking about some things that Kate feels passionate about, and we kind of align with our views today. But Jay says there will be a domino effect. I was thinking the domino effect might be like there will be a domino effect, but I was seeing it as starting in a different way. I was seeing that maybe Real Madrid go for Rodri to start with, and Manchester City maybe looking at Anderson or Enzo, and then I was saying then that will mean that too many's available, and then Manchester United can get too many. So I was thinking that too many's only available if he thinks that Real Madrid have replaced him effectively. So I think either way, though, I think the triangle works. To be honest, I would say if Man United got too many, Man United fans would be pretty happy. If Man United got Anderson, pretty happy. I think actually of that triangle, I think Man United fans would not be too happy if we got Rodri. So I'm kind of happy with that one. I think it works out, doesn't it? I would generally hope that nothing negative on Anderson, but I would generally hope that Man City just don't use him loads and he gets annoyed and then wants to join Man United in like a year's time. But no, too many walks into our team, doesn't he? And becomes like a key figure. So I'd be genuinely excited if we got too many because I think he could potentially be an elite signing. So again, that's kind of up there in terms of like potentially options. I'd say Rodri's contract goes in the summer, so he would be free. That's interesting. I read something this morning, Yachty, and maybe that there's like probably just journalists guessing, but Rodri is going to be offered a contract by Man City was something I heard somewhere. I don't know if that's the case, whether it's like Fabrizio or somebody said it, but whether Man City are putting together an offer for Rodri, it would be like Man City to try and maybe look at. I'm not sure how old Rodri is, but if they're looking at giving him a contract, then I think Real Madrid. This is kind of prime Real Madrid, isn't it? This is kind of the perfect situation for Real Madrid, where Real Madrid would be offering big money. So you heard a 600K contract would be offered. Is this from like is this from Man City or from Real Madrid? Because I think Real Madrid would potentially offer big money. If you consider 600K a week, wow, what's that? That's like 30, so 36 million pounds per year. So that's a huge contract. But if you consider 36 million a year over 5 years is what 170 million. So I was trying to, it's a bit early to try and do math, but you talk about that sort of price. If they see Rodri as like £100 million player or an £80 million player, then over the course of the contract, it kind of makes sense a little bit. But City are going to offer Rodri 600K a week. Wow, that is insane. That is like we're talking about Man United's Casemiro contract being like 300 plus as being astronomical. That is bloody ridiculous. £600,000 a week. I don't know what to say about that. That is crazy. That like Haaland's on 500K a week, or like I think Haaland's actually on like 500, 600K a week. But no, this is like eye-watering salaries, isn't it? This is like absolutely phenomenal. But I mean, Haaland is world class. Haaland's the best striker in the Premier League. He's Haaland's the reason why Man City win so many trophies. He on a bad season he scores like more than any other striker. So I think Haaland's salary is incredibly expensive. It's going to be, you know, you probably have to go to like Mbappe to find bigger salaries. But where's the bet? So I think Haaland's new 800K a week salary last summer. Oh wow, these numbers are outrageous, aren't they? When you consider what's happening with Manchester United. Loomis says you saw what happened to them last night without Rodri. Yeah, if Rodri, yeah, if Rodri's like 29 years old, thank you, Funchy, for the information. If Rodri's 29 years old, then I think with like Man City, there's some players that are worth trying to keep at the club, isn't it? And the 600K a week does mean that if they're looking at offering Anderson 200K a week, this is like where's this money coming from? Like I know there's like prize money, but that if Manchester City are offering 600, 800K a week salaries, I don't think I don't think Arsenal are close to that in like their wage structure. I think the Florian Wirtz deal with like Liverpool was about 300k a week. This is that phenomenal spending. So I don't know. When I saw that in European competition next season, I think you have to have a squad cost ratio of like 75% of your turnover. I'm not sure that Manchester City are going to be able to like these sort of deals. Like, how is this working in terms of like, yeah, Manchester United have got a low salary at the moment, like low average salaries. I think that Man City are potentially like this is, yeah, Rodri's good. I'm not going to say it's not good, but offering 600k a week to a player that's nearly 30 that's had serious injury issues, this seems a bit crazy. I would say fair play's got to come into it for City. Holland 500 million. If Rodri signs a new 600, Verts is like 250-ish. Okay, is that like base salary with like other add-ons and things on that? So now, if you're looking at Man United offering contracts, then you always said it'd be like us offering Luke Shaw a 350k a week contract. It is kind of similar, isn't it? That I'm not saying like I think like Rodri did win a Ballon d'Or. Like Luke Shaw is not going to be achieving that level. But no, just looking at the numbers, it shows the difference at the moment and how much Man City is spending. If you consider club turnover, Manchester United's turnover is probably like if you're actually looking about real figures here in the Champions League now, Manchester United's turnover will be certainly higher than Manchester City's, like certainly higher. It was pretty close without Champions League football. So Manchester United's turnover would be the most in the Premier League without a doubt. And like so for us, if we're looking at trying to get Anderson, we could offer Anderson if City offer Anderson 200k a week, we should just offer 300k a week. Like get that deal done. That's still half of what they're paying Rodri. So no, that's kind of it feels a bit dangerous for City to do that. But I hope hopefully hopefully this kind of like reckless spending causes some issues in the future. But no, it's just crazy, isn't it? Crazy. To go back to, I was kind of surprised by that. Those figures for me are pretty shocking, aren't they? Funchi says, I'll take Mane for the left wing role. He's got a different skill set to compare with what we currently have here. So I've seen him being talked about as like a £30 million option from Wolves, and he could potentially be the backup striker. And I keep saying this. This is kind of my guess. Every player we've been linked to, either it's like serious links or slight links that's going to be able to play left wing or backup striker, we seem to be looking for a player that can do both. So I'm actually I'm actually happy if we go for that sort of signing that left wing could be striker backup. I think that's a good option. Like, I think Mane is a good player, one for the future as well. I don't mind going for a younger player that's got the Premier League experience that's going to be maybe pushing Sesko, but also Benjamin Sesko quite often gets substituted, quite often misses a few games as well. So no, I think with like that, Mane would make sense. The only other option would be Kobe was worth 200k per week, but we made the deal at say 150k a week, saved 50k. I think Manchester United have got a genuinely sensible wage structure now, which is going to be sustainable. Like Manchester United, like the situation we've got at the club now is that Koeman comes in on a certain contract. Matheus Cunha and Buemo are on certain contracts as well, like about 150, 170-ish as a base. But you know, it's sustainable, isn't it? When you consider Manchester United's turnover of, it's probably going to be over 700 million this year. And the squad cost ratio for Man United is going to be very low. So if Villa win the Europa League, get a top five finish, does sixth place get Champions League place as well? I don't think so. I think that there's maximum of five places in the in Champions League. I could be wrong. Actually, no, maybe you're. Uh, I'm trying to think. Actually, it was different last year because Spurs won it, but Spurs weren't in the top five. So I think you get five positions based on the league finish. So I don't know. To be honest, actually, Jay, I'm not sure if they would or not. But there's going to be a lot of teams in the Premier. There's going to be a lot of Premier League teams in the Champions League next season. But also, it does seem to be at the moment that there's. I know people talking about the best teams in Europe, but I think the Premier League has got a lot of depth. We're talking about teams that are not in a title race contesting the Europa League finals, aren't we, year after year? So if Nottingham Forest are in the final this season, they're effectively been fighting relegation. And last season, Spurs won it, and they were near down the bottom of the table. So maybe the Premier League's actually got a lot of depth this season. And with a better, so I'm interested to see how City stand up to this squad cost ratio, these rules. And the Champions League rules are actually going to be more strict, aren't they? So it's about 80% in the Premier League, is it? And more like 70, 75%. So the Premier League is a bad. Why do you think the Premier League's a bad league? That I think it's probably one of the most competitive leagues in Europe. I think that's from a competition thing. Then you've got a lot of like, a lot of competitive teams. So I think that there's a lot of positives about the Premier League. I think it's a different league, isn't it? That if you look at La Liga, it's pretty much Barcelona or Real Madrid every season. If you look at the Bundesliga, it's always going to be Bayern Munich. So at least with Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, City, Chelsea, over the last kind of 20 years, we've had even throwing Leicester, we've had probably more varied winners in the Premier League than any other league. I'd say he's correct. Bournemouth would get a place in the Champions League. So to be honest, it's going to be like a 50-50, isn't it? Because Aston Villa, I suppose if Aston Villa get to the final, I think we might be seeing Forest get to the final, in which case we still get six teams in there, wouldn't we? I think Forest are maybe going to, my guess is going to be, based on recent form, Nottingham Forest have been very good. They've been thrashing teams near them at the bottom. They battered, didn't they score like five against Sunderland, like away from home? They thrashed Burnley as well, and they beat Aston Villa in the first game. I think Forest are going to go to the final and maybe win the whole thing, and deservedly so. They somehow they've been turning things around this season. Maybe they got the right manager in at last, but no, there's definitely some interesting things happening here. So Gordon wouldn't come to us. Supports Liverpool. It looks like Claire Balding. Uh, if you don't know who Claire Balding is, maybe Google it after the stream. And yeah, that's a good one. No, I don't like Gordon for different reasons. Not that he looks like Claire Balding, but that's another factor possibly. No, I don't like Gordon because I don't think he's good enough. I don't think he scores enough or creates enough or causes enough threat. I think he's a good player, but when you look at what Gordon does on the pitch and you look at the price tag associated, for me there's a disconnect. And you know, I'm not going to pay extra for a player that's like Claire Balding. If anything, it reduces his value. If I'm going to be blunt about that, no. Currently the SCR for City is 59%. They've got a further 10% headroom under Champions League rules. Yeah, it is about 70, isn't it? So £70 million their headroom. I don't see Rodri being offered a new contract. If you're looking at, I don't know what Rodri's on now, but I imagine it's quite high. Kevin De Bruyne was on 400, wasn't he? So I'm looking at how much would who's leaving City in the summer? Is that Bernardo? He might be on like a big contract as well. So it could be that Man City are looking at trying to work out how much the players leaving the club are going to be getting paid, how much they're going to be able to offer Rodri. So it might be they consider doing that. It might maybe impact their decision regarding how much they can offer Elliot Anderson. And this is something I'm hoping Man United can. Maybe Man United could be in a situation here. Don't forget actually how much money they spent on. And Mark Gahey was on a 300k salary, wasn't he? I'd imagine Semenyo's on quite a big deal as well. That those are two new contracts coming in. So yeah, financially it might be getting close, and it's not always a good thing to have these players in the books for multiple years. There's no doubt that for me, I kind of want Rodri to be on that. So Rodri's contract's 200k. So Bernardo Silva's contract's about 375. I was going to guess it might be like close to Kevin De Bruyne's kind of contract. So yeah, maybe that kind of adds up, doesn't it? If you are they just going to give Bernardo Silva's contract to Rodri, but you'd feel that with Anderson coming in as well, then it's going to be close. I'd imagine City might get very close to that, but we'll still probably just get under it. I'm guessing that they'll be mindful of this as well. But again, it does kind of set a precedent that if Rodri gets a massive pay rise, and then they look at Haaland on a massive pay rise, then at some point it's going to be difficult to fit in with the European rules that are coming in. So it'd just be Chelsea. Yeah, I don't think Chelsea are going to get sixth place either. I think Chelsea are going to be like gone. Chelsea, where are Chelsea in the league now? They lost about 6 games straight or something. Chelsea are woeful at the moment. I don't know who Chelsea have got, but I can't see them picking up any points at the moment. Rafael Leao and Gordon, I think Rafael Leao and Anthony Gordon are both on my shortlist of players to definitely never sign. So hopefully that doesn't happen. I think they're both overpriced, but they're both left wing players, mainly playing at striker this season. So do you think it's affecting their numbers and that's mitigating circumstances? I hope I hope Man United still aren't interested though, because I still look at it and think, come on, like United, we can do better than getting players that like Anthony Gordon and Rafa Leao. We moved on Rashford, and Rashford was a better player than both of those. So ninth at the moment. Okay, that does seem quite bad. We should probably wrap up in a few minutes. So, if anyone's got any final questions or comments, we've kind of hammered through midfield stories. There's lots of different angles to look at in midfield in terms of transfers at the moment. I'm kind of quite excited about potentially who we sign, and whether it's going to be Belieber or I think maybe more interestingly, it's going to be about how many players we do get. And are we going to get Alex Scott? Are we going to get Fernandez? Are we going to see a little bit more a bit more variety in our midfield than we did this season. Instead of seeing Casemiro and Kobe Mainoo every single match, will Manchester United actually be able to set up a bit differently? Maybe we can have a lineup where it's surprising us, and it could be exciting. I think for neutral or for Man United fans and neutrals. Yeah, Garnacho is looking like Fungi says Rafael is not overpriced. He's just 43 million. Do you think he's going to be like okay? I'm not very keen on Rafael, so maybe looking that up. Who is my favourite player since RK? That's a good one actually. So looking at the overall situation at Man United at the moment, I would be looking at the options and as a kind of like looking at three players. I was thinking, what about too many? Belieber plus Fernandez. So then you got this is assuming West Ham get relegated. So you got too many. I think it's going to be defensively unbelievable. Then you've got someone like Fernandez, who's very good, could be available for 35 million. And you've got Belieber, who also I think has got a different skill set as well. So I think we'd be looking at that. So for me, I'm going to say too many Belieber plus Fernandez. And I think that gives us three midfield players that we can spend. How much would that cost? So 70 million, 35 million, that's 105. 65 for so I'd spend 170 million pounds, hopefully get Belieber, Fernandez, and too many. And I think that would give us two players that may be more defensive, two players that could be potentially more attacking, but also four different players. We could even see too many play at centre back, and we could see potentially like a couple of different combinations. So I've kind of like made up my mind that I think we're going to be getting Belieber, and I think too many would be the most exciting signing we can get in terms of like experience at the club. I've kind of I would go for Anderson, but I think at the moment because Anderson is potentially too expensive. I think 170 million pounds with three people in would be quite good deals. And then I think we could then spend the rest on left back, sort of attacking cover, and look at it around that sort of way. Who do I think the club will bring in? Oh, that's difficult, isn't it? I think the one that seems to be relentlessly linked. I think Man United will buy Belieber, and then beyond Belieber, who do I think they'll bring in? I think Alex Scott won't happen because he might get more expensive. But I think we're going to go for Alex. I think we're going to get Belieber in to start with. I'm trying to think who else is coming. It's quite tricky to think of. That Angela Stiller was there on the radar, but I don't see much about Angela Stiller. Um, it's tricky, isn't it? Like João Gomez seems like a good option, but Man United don't always go for the good options. I don't know. I think maybe Alex Scott and Edison are good shouts, but I think that I would be saying like with Bruno Fernandes talking about Matheus Fernandes as well. I'd say maybe Belieber, Edison, Fernandes. possibly, or Belieber, Alex Scott, and Fernandez. That once I look at Belieber as being like, I think Belieber's like nailed on. Like I think that unless I see something dramatic, I think Belieber's going to be Man United's first midfield signing, and then there will be one surprise, and then I would say Alex Scott, Ederson, Fernandez, one of those players seems to be likely. So it's tricky to guess, isn't it, at this point in time? But that's my going to be my guess. If we could get too many, if we can't get too many, would I take Camavinga? I've only heard, I haven't looked in Camavinga much recently, but he is apparently cheaper. But I think Camavinga's got some bad injury issues or injury records. So I'd probably say I'll look into it more. But I think Camavinga might be one that would be a bad option on initial thoughts. But for me, too many would be the guy to try and get. I think Camavinga's been slightly linked as well. So that's what I'm thinking. Big up to you. Team Tactics TV, I would say this like one of the best Newcastle fan channels out there. I need to actually ask you at some point. Maybe we'd have to do some sort of collaboration and get you on because if we're linked to Tonali anymore, we might have to have a chat and let us know. But 80 million for Tonali, please. You want him gone, or just want the rebuild? That's because I do say sometimes that when I sometimes quote Newcastle, I do quote your channel and I do quote like some of the things that you're saying on there as well. And one of the things I did say was that you regard or Newcastle fans as general seem to think that Tonali would be someone that you're happy to sell because you can reinvest the money. And I think that, yeah, I'm kind of quoting you a little bit, but you were kind of implying that if you get the right money for Tonali, you can buy someone cheaper, but also buy two players. So it's about getting a rebuild, get a bit of liquidity financially into Newcastle United. So yeah, I think what you're saying in the chat is roughly what I was trying to tell other people as well. That yeah, so Newcastle United, so people that were not doubting, but people that were wondering where my sources are coming from, Newcastle fans and a lot of people watching Toon Tactics TV, and he's a Newcastle content creator as well, have been like saying that Tonali, the idea is that they want Tonali sold, they can then reinvest the money. So I think Man United are seriously looking. I think 80 is like actually not bad. Like considering the crazy prices out there, I think it's actually not bad. But it's about getting the right deal, isn't it? And big up to you, Alex. We're just about to wrap up, and I'm trying to keep streams a little bit shorter now, but when there's a lot of questions and things, I'll try and go for as many as well. If there's Tonali, you can bet there'll be some. Yeah, there'll be. There's going to be lots of things regarding this one. Um, do Newcastle want Agate? I think I kind of know that. I don't think it takes like a Nostradamus level prediction to guess what Newcastle fans would think regarding Agate. That if Agate goes to Newcastle, I think Agate needs to give like his agent even more commission because I think Mendes is doing bits with like Agate's career. How's he gone from like Sporting to being not in the team at PSG and then moving to Man United? He's got the best agent in the world, isn't he? So yeah, no, and Anana, I believe Anana's got an offer from Trabzonspor in in Turkey as well. So Trabzonspor won Anana. I think he's like done well. Didn't he save three penalties in the shootout? Like Anana saved three penalties. I mean, he couldn't save like three decent shots in a season for Man United, but he put in a good performance. I think as far as I can see, he might be happy enough in Turkey. And good luck to him. He said Tonali and Koemanu would be good. Yeah. No, I think like sometimes things work out, don't they? For Anana, he's got an offer on the table from Trabzonspor. I think the tax situation is different in Turkey. He's potentially going to get like decent European football there as well. He's not going to come back into Manchester United's team, so it makes sense. I don't think Man United need to sell him for crazy money either. Like he's been at Man United now. This is like 3 years. If you consider 2 years at Manchester United, a year out at Trabzonspor, then yeah, Manchester United can definitely move him on for not a lot of money and not make a loss as well. And so you think people prefer all rounders? If Carrick says he wants Ugarte for one more season, how would I react? Okay, serious point here. If Michael Carrick says he wants Ugarte for one more season, then my reaction would be, it depends. If Michael Carrick does it in an interview, I'd be wondering who the stunt double was. If Michael Carrick posts something on social media suggesting that, I'd think he'd been hacked. I don't think Michael Carrick's not stupid. I'd be very, very surprised if Michael Carrick said that. If he did, it would be surely sarcastic. I don't think anyone sees that Agate has been part of Manchester United, not even Agate. So if Agate stays at Man United, it would be very surprising. I don't think there's anyone that wants him to stay at the club, and I think he'll find some options elsewhere. Say Chelsea is is moving Garnacho on as well. We get 5% of the sale. I think we get about £2 from Garnacho, don't we? I think if Chelsea's selling for a loss, do we have to pay the money? I don't know. Do we have to pay them 5% of the loss? No, I wouldn't be. One thing I would look out for, just jokes aside, one thing I would look out for is if if Greenwood moves clubs, Man United have got a massive stake in that. They got 50 to 60 million, so 50 to 60% on any sort of sale. And he's been linked with some big clubs in France. So if Greenwood goes, it's happy days. It's big money coming in. So I would look at that as being potentially more interesting. I mean, yeah, I think Agate is like and Michael Carrick that Michael Carrick hasn't even used him. So I don't think it's going to be no, I was just like jokes aside, like he's going to leave the club, isn't he? Almost certainly. So not really a problem. Not really a problem. Exactly, exactly. We're going to be back live later on today about 1 p.m. Hopefully, there's going to be some different news stories coming out, some breaking stuff as well. But this has been like a general look at how Manchester United spend 150 million pounds on potentially three midfield player options. It seems to be what people are guessing at the moment, but maybe we'll kind of zero in on individual stories over the next few weeks. I think things are going to be changing quite quickly. But if you've enjoyed the stream, enjoyed the channel chat today, please subscribe if you guys are new as well. And please check out the Discord pin link as well. We're kind of like building the community up on there. It's about 70 people on there so far. And that's where we're sharing information as well regarding streams, regarding videos, and also a bit of background stuff on different players as well. There's a few videos there. The people that watch scouting stuff are posting things as well to kind of build up a kind of information database of stuff on there. But please get involved if you're new, and thanks for getting involved. Big thanks to Rob for the gifted memberships, and there's some legends there in the chat today that are members. So big up to you guys as well. We will try and like keep doing with the calling shows on a weekend as long as they're popular and people get involved, and we will be looking to do that. But no, we're going to try and expand. So thank you for getting involved in United TV, and hopefully we'll catch you guys in a later stream today. Yeah, big shout out to Rob. A big shout out to the moderators as well. It's been like a fantastic chat the last few weeks as well. Lots of great opinions, lots of great information. And over the time, people that get more and more involved, if you want to become a moderator on the channel, we'll look at that in the future as well because things are going to be evolving. But yeah, just a quick last one is shopping list is like too many Buwadi, Lewis Hall, and okay, different options there. That's Chimpong. I thought I'd spell that, probably pronounce that wrong, but no, too many Buwadi, Lewis Hall, good options there as well. Good start. And yeah, big up to people getting involved. 800 subscribers already. 1K incoming quite soon. Let's hopefully get there. But 1 p.m. this afternoon for the next one. Hopefully, there's going to be some different stories to talk about then. And then there will be a late stream tonight. About 10 p.m., Jules will be hosting as well. So we'll be doing some late night chat with Jules. That should be good. And hopefully, we'll keep the content flowing. But then, guys, have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.